Brilliant. Well, I know it's with 2 minutes past 7, and I think most people are here now, so I think we'll make a start. Welcome to this online training session, doing video for church. Welcome if it's your first time doing one of these sessions. I know this is the end of a mini series of online sessions that I've been doing, and I know some of you have come to the previous 2. So thank you to you for coming back. And if you've been to one of the previous sessions, it's great to see you again. But if you don't know who I am, I'm Richard Earnshaw. I work for the Diocese of Leeds in their communications team. And my specific roles around digital social media. So I would just a bit at the start, I wouldn't describe myself as a video expert at all in any shape or form, but I've sort of had a bit of experience of doing some video for the diocese, and I just thought I'd just pass that bit of experience on to you tonight and some of the things that I've picked up as I've been doing video. But I'm sure that some of you will perhaps have done things that I've not done, but yeah, I hope that it's an encouragement and it'll help you in terms of producing videos, whether that's live streaming or you're producing pre-recorded videos for your church of different types. Hopefully, what we're going to go through tonight will be of help. So, as I've said a couple of times, if you just keep yourself on mute, and then I'll let you know when there'll be opportunity for you to ask a question or make a comment if you wish so. And I think that's pretty much it. It's just to let you know that it'll be mostly me going through a PowerPoint. There will be a couple of occasions when I'll ask you to do things and get involved, and one of those will involve you using the Google Jamboard, and I sent you the link for that in the 2 emails that I've sent you. So hopefully you've been able to access that, and we'll use that a little bit later. But yeah, we're just gonna kick off. I'm gonna share my screen, take you to my PowerPoint, and we're gonna make a start. But of course, if there's any other issues, if I cut out or you can't hear me or anything, then please do let me know as well. And finally, just to say that I am recording this session, just so we can pass it on to anyone who's maybe missed this session tonight and wanted to join in. So just to let you know, and there is the little chat feature on Microsoft Teams. So if you want to write a comment as we're going, share a link to something, then feel free to use that also. But I'm just going to start by sharing the screen and let's get going. So yeah, this is our session. We're going to be exploring some top tips, a bit of advice, maybe just some suggestions for how you can create effective videos for church. And we've just got one aim for the session, nice and easy, just to know how to create an effective video for church. That's the whole aim of what we're going to be doing, and we're going to look at various different aspects of how to do video. And this is the plan for the session. We're going to firstly look at planning it out. So we're going to look at how you can plan a video. And I always think to get the best results in anything, and it's the same with when you're shooting video as well. It's a good idea to have a plan. So we're going to look at how you can do that. Then we're going to look at on set how to shoot a good video. So we're going to look at some different capture devices, explore lighting, sound, stability, framing and background, and then look at A and B roll as well. So we're going to be covering a few different areas there. And I've actually got on here post edit. Now this was on my plan originally, and I did sort of change this because I realized I already had a lot on already in terms of the plan and how to shoot the video. So if we have time, we can maybe have a bit of a discussion about post editing when we're doing videos, but we're going to predominantly look at the other two aspects and we'll see how we go time-wise. But first things first, as I've said, we need to make sure when we wanting to create an effective video in any situation that we plan it out. And I realized that have been able to do this can be time consuming. And I know when I've done videos for work, it's an extra added thing. And sometimes videoing, you just want to do something quick. I know, especially at the moment when you're under such pressure to produce videos on a weekly basis. And it isn't always possible, I realize, to plan in great detail. But if you wanted to get the best result, then I would suggest that you think about creating a plan, and it just helps you think through and process the purpose behind your video, how it's going to look, and yeah, I just find you just get a much better result at the end of it. Now, there's a list here of different things that you can use to help you plan your video. So the first one, and I will show you an example of some of these once I've gone through them, because I've got some on my computer that I use. The first one is called a treatment. And a treatment is your best effort in defining your project. It's basically a document where you present a clear synopsis of your story, developing your production and organizing its purpose. So it's basically, excuse me, a document, and it's probably the starting point of your video project. And as I say, it makes you think, first of all, what is the synopsis behind your video? And it's a way of, and it's how you define the project. And then it also asks you, this document, to fill out some other details. So with regards to the production and also the purpose of the video as well. And I will show you an example of what I mean by a treatment, but they're very useful things to use when you're planning. Another thing is a storyboard. I'm sure all of you will know what a storyboard is, and you probably use them not just for video, but for other things. But it's basically a graphic representation of how your video will unfold, shot by shot. It's made up of a number of squares with illustrations or pictures representing each shot, with notes about what's going on in the scene and what's been said in the script, if you have one, during that shot. And you can see that the picture that I've used is actually a picture of someone drawing a storyboard. And the third one, again, I'm sure you all know what one of these is a script. And this is obviously perhaps something good to have, it, especially if you've got a lot of dialogue in your video and you've got someone who's speaking. And I know a lot of church videos do have dialogue in them. And it's a chronological rundown of the scenes, the shots, the action, the dialogue, specifying who is saying and doing what, and when they're saying or doing it. I mean, obviously, a lot of our videos can be spontaneous, and you perhaps don't need to go into so much detail about what people say, but yeah, the scripts are obviously really popular, really good way of when you're planning your video. Then a fourth one, which is something I probably always have, is a shot list. And this is a full log of all the shots you want to include in your video. Essentially, it's a checklist filled with details that will give your film a sense of direction and efficiency. So shot lists help you consider shooting footage based on, so it makes you think about your location, the setup that you're going to have when you shoot a video, and not necessarily in the order of the story. But shot lists, I think, are really useful. You can use them, as it says here, as a bit of a checklist, and it just makes you think before you do the video, what are the different shots that I need to be taking to produce this good video. Then the next one is a location sheet. You probably guess what this is as well, but it's basically, many filmmakers will perhaps visit the location before videoing. I mean, you'll know that a lot of feature films, that they involve people going on where they go to the actual location of where they're going to be doing the filming, and so they can get a sense of what the location looks like and what it'll be like on film. And it's if you've obviously, I realize if you're doing all these, you've probably got quite a bit of time. But it's something useful if you've got the time to be able to do it, is to go to the location, and you can fill out a little sheet that helps you decide whether it's a suitable location or not. And it provides, you can usually with a location sheet, you'll have still images of the location and rationale for why the location is being used. And then the last thing, and I know you'll all know what these are, risk assessment. And of course, it's just a risk assessment is for the safety of the filmmaker and actors doing the video. And obviously means that all potential risks are taken into account and specific measures put into place to ensure safety. And again, I realize if you're doing all these, then it requires quite a bit of time. But it is just that planning, that thought before you do the video, which really can help you produce the video that you want to produce and produce something that's of good quality. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm just gonna share it again because I want to show you some examples of these documents, and I can send these to you afterwards if you want them. But this is basically the treatment that I was talking about. This is the document. So you can see that you've got this cover sheet, and on the second page, you've got the premise. So it's basically like a little blurb, just a short paragraph, really summarizing what the video is all about. And then as you go to the next page, you can see that you've got the company name, who's the director, any contact info. You've got the title of the video, what's its genre, what's the target audience. A really important question when you're creating anything like a video. What's the target audience? What's the length of it? And this can obviously be dependent on where you're sharing it and how you're sharing it. So if you're sharing something for social media, then you might think that you want shorter videos. But if I realize if it's a church service, then it's going to be obviously a lot longer than 30 seconds. But the length's important to think about. And then like aspect ratio. So basically you'll know some of you will know aspect ratio when it's basically when you create a video, and if it's for YouTube, for example, it will have a certain ratio. It's like that landscape, and it's 16:9. That's for Facebook, but you tend to get that similar for YouTube as well. And so that's but it can be different for platforms like Instagram, the social media platform Instagram, which has a different aspect ratio. So we won't go too deeply into that because I know that's sort of quite technical, but this just gives you an idea of what the treatment is. And you've got some notes about what the plot is, and there's a SWOT analysis as well at the bottom that it makes you fill in. So thinking about the strengths and the SWOTs, obviously it's the strength, weaknesses, etc. of the project. So that's the treatment. And then this is an example of the shot list. And again, I can send these to you. These are just templates that I use, but you can see that it's a table, and you've got each row is basically the one shot. And you can, if you want to get technical, you can say what type of shot it's going to be. So is it going to be a close-up shot? Is it going to be a medium shot? Is it going to be a behind-the-shoulder shot, etc.? You can do a short description of what the shot will be. Any actors who are going to be taking part, and any props you need, and obviously a little checkbox. So that is the shot list. And I've also got the location form as well. So you can see this is a very simple form. It's just basically got what the name of the location is, rationale for the location, why have you chosen that location, the address, some images, and also any hazards that the location might put across. So they're just all the ones that I wanted to show you. Basically, I'm just going to go back onto my PowerPoint. There it is. So that's it. So plan it out, and as I say, I can make those forms available to you after this session, perhaps tomorrow when I'm back on my emails. But I've not shown you the script and the sort of the storyboard and the risk assessment, because I know you probably have a good idea, a good picture in your mind as to what those things are. But I do have a template for the storyboard that I can send you as well. And the scripts, you can obviously just use a piece of paper, a Word document to create a script. So that's the first thing I wanted to look at was having a plan. And if you do use all of these, but if not all of these, maybe if you just use 2 of them or 2 or 3 of them, it will really make you think about the video, your target audience, etc. And it will help you create something better towards the end. And you can use this with any type of video, really. Okay. So next we're going to look at actually creating a video, and we're going to be on set shooting a good video, and we're going to be looking at different capture devices. We're going to be looking at lighting, sound, stability, framing, and A and B roll. And I will be providing you with some suggestions of equipment as well. And obviously, I've just picked things that I've used, but there's obviously a whole array of different equipment that you can use for these different things. But yeah, before we get into that, though, I just want to do a little exercise with you, if that's okay. So I've got a video here, and I'm going to play it, and hopefully the sound will come through. If the sound doesn't come through, if someone can just shout at me, that would be great, so I can try and fix that. But it's just basically a short clip. I think it's just over a minute long. This is a video that I did probably about a year and a half ago, and some of you will know this is Chris Edmondson, who former bishop, and he's well known in our diocese. And this was when he became chaplain of Headingley Cricket Club, and I went along and did a little video with him. You can see there's Headingley Cricket Ground in the background. I'm a big cricket fan, so it was a bit of a dream come true to be able to go do that. But I'm just going to play this video, and then at the end, I'd like you to offer some feedback. So what was good and not so good about my video? So I just want you to watch it, and then perhaps there's some things that I did well in it, but then is there some things that you think that could maybe be improved? And then we're going to go to Google Jamboard, and I'd like you to use that to share your feedback, if that makes sense. I'm just going to play this video.
I'm Chris Edmondson, one of the honorary assistant bishops here in the Diocese of Leeds, and I have the privilege of recently having been appointed to be the chaplain to Yorkshire County Cricket Club. I do this in succession to Canon Max Wigley, who's done a great job here over the last 15 years or so. Not everybody might realise that many sports clubs now have chaplains. I think there are about 600 in total across the country. And I think it's useful to have somebody who's very much committed to the particular sport, but a little bit outside the situation, to be able to be a listening ear, to be a confidant. In this instance, not just to the playing staff, but members of the office staff, the groundsmen, volunteers, anybody really who's connected with the club. It doesn't have to be a major crisis or disaster, but just sometimes to be able to be alongside and give a bit of advice. Obviously, I'm here as a Christian chaplain, but available to all. And I hope and pray that I can add value to all that takes place here at the club, and that we have a successful season here at Yorkshire.
There we go. So I'm just going to unshare my screen. Hopefully you could all hear and see that. And if you've got Google Jamboard open, if you could just transition onto that, and you'll see, if you've clicked on the link, that it'll come up with a page, and it's got like a sheet, and it'll have some options on the left hand side, and you can create a little sticky note, and if you could add a little sticky note and offer some feedback on that video, basically, that'd be really good. So say what was good, perhaps what was not so good in that video, and be as honest as you want. I don't mind. Yeah, so hopefully you've all been able to get on. It's just, you see on the left-hand side, there's a little bar. And if you click the sticky note option, you'll be able to create some of these sticky notes you can see people have started to create. Yeah, so I can see some of you have straight away noticed the lighting was not the best. And that was probably the biggest thing with that video, that it was the bishop's face was very dark. So that's a really good thing. But some of you saying that the background was nice. It was a really nice backdrop, being able to have the ground in the back. Some of you just pointed out the background music that I used in that. Yeah, some of you sort of, and that is another thing I know, and we'll go onto looking at sound, but background music can be really effective, of course, but you're right, it's getting that balance, make sure it's not too loud and it doesn't drown out the person who's speaking. It's getting the right music as well for the background. You don't want something that's too dramatic. Or some of you have put a good length. I mean, it's short and sweet, and that was for social media, so we didn't want it to be very long. But some of you have pointed out about subtitles. That's a really good point. It didn't have subtitles on, which is a really important and good thing to include in your videos if you can. Some of you just talked about the sound maybe appearing muffled. I think that is probably mainly because I'm playing it through a PowerPoint and through Teams. The sound isn't quite as good as the original file, but yeah. No movement. That's yeah. No, yeah. It was just a one shot, wasn't it? There was nothing else to it. And we're gonna look at A roll and B roll, and that's very much about movement and having different types of shots in your video. Some of you have said good position of the subject and the ground. That's great. If you want to come back onto Microsoft Teams, then I think we're okay there, aren't we? There's some great suggestions and ideas though. Thank you for sharing those. But yeah, we'll head back to Microsoft Teams, and thank you for that. That was good. We're just going to carry on with my PowerPoint, and I will pause for a little sort of break and give you opportunity to ask some questions as well. So I won't go through the whole thing, and I will give you that opportunity. But next, I'm just going to share my screen, and I just want to share another video with you. And this is a little video that I did yesterday. And this is basically me just taking you through a little video setup that I created in my living room, basically. And this is just a little start, and maybe it give you some ideas. Maybe you've done a little video setup like this before, but let's take a look.
No sound.
Thanks, Yul. I know what I've done. Hold on. When I shared the screen, I didn't ask it to share sound as well. Hold on, let me do that again. There we go. This should do it. Let me start that again.
Hi, so I'm just going to quickly take you through my setup. Now I'm in my lounge, and I've basically got a camera set up with a microphone ready to record someone speaking. So this setup could be used for someone who is perhaps delivering a talk or a preach or some sort of interview scenario. So let's just take a look at how I've got it set up, and I'll explain why I've done it this way and some of the gear that I'm using as well. So if you just want to follow me around here. So this is my setup here. You can see that I've got a stool, obviously, where the person speaking is going to sit. And then I'm using my iPhone 8 as the camera, and you can see that I've got it there placed in a tripod, which of course, that's my dog, if you've just seen him, by the way. And so I've got my phone in the tripod, and that's obviously to stabilize the phone and make sure that I've got a nice, still and smooth image. So why have I got it set up like this? Now, one reason is lighting. Now you can see that I've set it up in front of some French doors. There's lots of natural light streaming in, and for someone sat there looking at the camera, they'll be very well lit. There'll be lots of light shining on their face, and you'll be able to see them clearly. So that's one reason. And as I've explained, I've got the phone on a tripod, and I'd really just recommend that that it's a great bit of kit, not too expensive. And I will go on to talk a bit about stabilization in this training session. But you can see on my phone as well that I've got this cable attached, and this is a little lapel microphone like the one that I'm wearing currently to record this video with, and this will attach to the subject, the person who is talking, and normally stick it up under a t-shirt or a jumper so it's well hidden, and it just creates a better sound. It'll pick up the person's voice more effectively. So that's why I've got the little microphone set up as it is. And I think with that you're going to get a pretty solid little video of someone who is delivering a talk. Now, that's one of my setups. Another one of my setups, if we just turn around here, is to take this. Now, if you're wanting to get something that's a bit more professional, that's going to be of higher quality, then you probably want to upgrade what you call the capture device, basically the thing that's recording the video. So I've got my smartphone there, but here you can see this is a more substantial camera. This is a DSLR. It's a Lumix. It's basically the works camera, and it's a really good camera. It takes really high quality, up to 4K footage. And you can, because it's DSLR, you can change a lot the settings a lot more. It's all fully manual, so you can really go to town and adjust it and make it a really nice picture. And you can see that this is also sat on a tripod, and this is a more substantial, it's a more professional looking tripod, and you can see that it goes up higher. This is probably set up for it's slightly above my eye line, but it's if I was standing and doing a talk, then I'd want to use something like this. If I was stood and say the camera's at my eye line, it's very stable. And of course I would move this so I'm getting more of the light streaming onto my face, and you can attach these lapel mics to cameras like this too to create that better sound. But that's just a really quick video just to basically demonstrate a couple of the setups that I use when I take videos of people when they're delivering a talk.
There we go. Hopefully that was of help. We're just going to move swiftly on, and the first thing we're going to look at, and I mentioned a couple of these in that little video clip, but the capture device, basically the camera, the thing that takes the video. And I'm sure that you've all probably got something, one of these, or maybe you've got something that's slightly different to these three options that I've got on screen. I realize there's more ways of doing it than what I'm suggesting, but you can see here that I've just got three capture devices that you could use to create a video for church. One which is really popular, of course, because a lot of us have smartphones these days, iPhones or Samsungs or other makes of smartphones. And because they're so advanced these days and that have really good quality cameras on, you can take really effective videos using smartphones. And they're obviously very portable, they're very light, and you can carry them around very easily. Like I showed in the video, you can buy tripods for them. They can be great. I mean, so there's a smartphone, and equally, I know people use things like iPads and other forms of tablets as well, which creates a very similar effect to that of smartphones. And again, you can buy tripods that hold them, and especially some of the newer ones, they have really good quality. I mean, some of them do take video in 4K. If you don't know what 4K is, that's basically 4 times HD, which is very high quality video footage. I mean, you don't need to be almost take that higher quality footage, but these devices do offer that. It's just how advanced they are becoming. But if for your church you're wanting to get a bit more advanced and you're wanting to create video that is more professional looking, perhaps gives you a bit more of a cinematic feel, then I don't think that phones and tablets do quite do as well as a proper camera. And this is the works camera that you saw in the video that I've just shown that we use, and it's a Lumix GH5. It's a really nice video camera. So it's a DSLR, so it's a digital camera. I mean, it takes lovely still images, and I'm sure some of you will have perhaps a camera like this, maybe a Nikon or a Canon, or maybe even a Lumix camera like this, and they take beautiful still images. But this Lumix in particular, it's very good for video, and you can attach different lenses to it, so you can get a really good zoom. And as I said in the video, these just offer you so much more flexibility. I mean, they're like, the Lumix has so many settings that you can change. I mean, I've not fully got to grips with all the settings on it. It is quite complicated, but you do have so much more flexibility on things that you're able to change on a camera like this compared to a smartphone or an iPad. But of course, there are other capture devices. Some of you might have things called GoPros, which are the little cameras that you see people attach to their helmets or to their bikes, and they're really cool for doing if you like recording while you're running or you're swimming. And there's of course digital camcorders as well that you can use. There's so much out there, and of course these various capture devices come at various different costs. I mean, the DSLR cameras, this Lumix is probably more on the more expensive end of this type of camera, but you can get them for, maybe from £300 or £400 up to 2,000 plus. Really, there is a range of types of these types of cameras you can buy. But there's just some suggestions of capture devices that you can get. And if you're thinking of, if you're starting out and thinking of doing video and you're just wondering what you can maybe get to do video, then any of these options will do a good job. But DSLR is, if you're wanting that higher end video, then that's a good option. But I know many of you will be using phones and tablets. So so we've looked at capture devices, and then nextly I just want to look at lighting, which is, if you're wanting to improve your videos, this is a key area, is how to use light in your videos. And I know this sounds really obvious, but we want to be able to see the subject. And when I mean the subject, usually, I know with a lot of church videos, it tends to be a person who's maybe speaking or doing something in a video. And you can see a couple of examples below. These are both videos that I've done. The one on the left of this lady, and very similar to the video of Chris Edmondson. I just basically positioned her all wrong with her back facing the window. I should have had her the other way, facing the window, so she would have had that natural light streaming onto her face. But you can see she's very dark, and it's just not, you can see her, but she's just not lit very effectively. And whereas on the right hand side, I've perhaps positioned myself a lot better. You can see that there's natural light streaming onto my face, and I'm sat near a window in my bedroom there, and it's just looks a lot better, that sort of lighting. But it's easy to get this wrong, and I've got it wrong a number of times, especially when I first started doing video. I'd do my filming, think I'd done a great job, and then you look back at it and you realise that the lighting's not quite what it should be. But this can happen in particular if you're in a bit of a rush as well. Like I remember doing that video at the cricket ground, and I was in a bit of a rush doing it because it wasn't the only thing that I was doing. And I didn't really plan it properly, and I didn't take into consideration the location. So that's just going back to having a plan. That this is one of the things that you can take into account is the lighting that you're going to use, and are you going to film it near a window, or is it going to be outside, etc. So there's obviously two types of light. There's artificial and natural lighting. So natural lighting can be really good. I mean, you can see on my example at the bottom right, this is all natural lighting, and it can look very good. So you can make sure your subject is situated near a window, and you can obviously get lots of natural light shining onto the face. I mean, obviously, you may need to play around with the position. And often I find with video, it does take a bit of getting set up. And I'm sure many of you who've done video will realize this as well. You have to try maybe a few different positions before you get the light spot on to the subject, and so you can see them properly. But if you're outside, natural light, and this can actually happen when you're inside as well, when you're sat near a window. But natural light, obviously, you can't control it, which is the only problem with natural light. You can imagine, I mean, I know some of the days that we've had recently, especially when it's cloudy and you've got blue sky, that 1 second it'll be bright sunlight, but then the next, the sun will go behind the clouds and the light completely changes. But obviously, when you're doing a video, you want the light to be the same. You want it to be consistent. So that is the only problem with natural lighting. I mean, some days, especially when it's overcast, then it is easier to manage. But if you're outside, natural light can shine very brightly on the subject. So, I mean, rather than having, I always think if you've got the subject sat directly in front of the sunlight, it doesn't look very good because they'll be squinting, and there's just it makes them look really bright. So maybe think about having the subject using have the sun shining from behind them. So have this, rather than them sat directly looking at the sun, have it. But then that can create a bit of a silhouette effect, which is not great either. But on the other hand, artificial light, you do have a lot more control. And I think you find the more professional video makers will probably, use, especially in like an interview scenario, they will probably use artificial light more. But you do need extra equipment to do artificial light well, because often the lights that we have on the ceilings of our home are not very good. But if you have proper lighting equipment, then you can create really good effects. So 45 degrees from the subject. Basically, they reckon that a good, if you're thinking about lighting and where you want the light to shine onto the subject, they say having the light shine at about a 45-degree angle is a good place to have the person. So you can see on mine here, I tried to do that. So you can see I'm sat and the light is coming in on an angle onto my face. The light's not directly on my face. It's coming in at that 45-degree angle, and you can see that one side of my face is really well lit. The other side it's cast a bit of a shadow. So that's what they reckon is a good thing for having it 45 degrees. And by the eye test, it basically means can you see the eyes? Because that's a key thing when you're doing a video. You need to be able to see the person's eyes. And so when you looking at lighting, try and have it so it wraps around the face and you can see their eyes. So again, try and avoid direct sunlight. Why not use filters? Now, and then again, this is if you want to use natural lighting, and you might have the subject sat near a window, but the sunlight is direct and it's really bright. You can do things to try and filter that light. So I've not done this personally, but I've seen people suggest that you could get a white bed sheet and you could put it in front of the window, and that just dumbs the light basically. And so it doesn't mean you've got that direct sunlight, but you've got a dimmed light that is just better for filming with. So can you use maybe something like a bed sheet over a window to filter the light? But you can create different effects using light. You can create some great moods with it. It's one of those things where you need to try and experiment with it. There's not one rule for all. I mean, like I say, there's the standard. If you're doing an interview, you have the 45-degree angle, but maybe you want to do a bit of video and you want to make it look quite dramatic. So what you'd do is you'd want to create a lot of shadow on the person. So you can mess around with the position of the lighting. I mean, the classic is if you're doing a horror film, then you have the light shining from the floor up to the person's face, and it creates that classic horror movie effect. It's just, you need to experiment with lighting. There's loads of great effects that you can create. I mean, you can also have something which is called backlighting. So you can have light that is basically behind the subject. And this is a great way of maybe introducing different colors. If you had like a colored light in the background, like you see a lot of people use things like fairy lights and things that are hung up behind, and it just creates that light but behind the subject, which can look really effective as well. So you just need to experiment with it and be creative. But if we're thinking of some lighting that you can purchase, maybe you're just thinking, maybe some artificial lighting would be a good idea, and especially if you're wanting to produce some really good videos that are in maybe a church that's quite dark, then what we have at work is we have these newer LED video lights, and these will put you back about £190, which for what you get, I think is quite good, actually. I mean, I know it's £190, but you get two of these lights, and they come on tripods, so you can adjust the height of them. They have batteries, so you can plug them straight to the power, but you can also give them batteries, and so you can have them without a wire, which is really good. And if you have a couple of these, you'll be able to light someone up really well. But if you've not got that money, you can get stuff which is really affordable. So you can get something like this single light for £30. And if you've got a DSLR camera, for example, this will attach to the top of the camera. Or you could buy a little tripod for it as well, so it will just attach to a tripod. And this is something you could just maybe shine straight onto the person, just to give that little bit of lift and a little bit of lighting. So there's a couple of suggestions. I mean, if you're really interested in artificial lights, there's hundreds of options out there. And you can go crazy. You can spend loads of money on lighting, as you can imagine. There's so much option out there. But if you want in a way of maybe improving your video, maybe investing in something like this would be a nice idea. So that is basically lighting. So the next thing I wanted us to explore is sound. So lighting's really important. Another really important thing is to have good sound in a video, because I know you will have watched videos before, and if the sound isn't good, if you're struggling to hear the person speaking, perhaps because the background noise is too much, or because it's windy, and that can often affect the sound, especially if you're recording straight from a camera. It can be very distracting and off-putting. So if you can get good sound, then it's really good. And obviously, again, we want to be able to hear the subject clearly. And there's really easy and affordable ways of improving the quality of your video sound, especially when it comes to recording someone who's talking. Especially when recording in like a busy church, or if you're going outside, there are things that you can do, but it's very easy to get the sound wrong. And like in that video I showed you, I got the lighting wrong. I have so many times I've got the sound wrong, and I listen back to it, and it just makes me cringe. And I'm like, that's not very good. But there are easy ways of getting around it. And again, plan and think about where you are filming. This will come into your pre-planning. And obviously, if it's someone who's giving a talk, you want somewhere that's quiet. Ideally, you don't want to be filming somewhere where there's lots of going on. There's loads of noise. It's going to become very difficult to get a clear sound in that scenario. So plan about where you're filming, but also what equipment can you use to minimize background noise. So, for example, if you've got a microphone like the one that I showed in my setup, like a little lapel microphone that clips onto someone's shirt and goes straight into your camera or your phone, you can buy things called wind protectors, and you will have seen them. They're basically like little fluffy covers that go over the microphone, and this helps to cancel out some of the wind disturbance. But make sure to test the sound. This is really important. I remember doing one video, and I forgot to plug in my lapel microphone, and I must have been in a rush, and I was recording it, and it was because after I do video, I always go back and I look at it and I review it, and just to check it's all recorded okay. And I realized straight away that the sound was not. There was loads of background noise and everything. It's because I'd not attached the microphone. So the person who I was filming wasn't very pleased, but we had to redo it. And it's just, I mean, again, if you've got something like a DSLR camera, you can have headphones plugged into the camera, so you can be listening while you're recording. And again, that's if you've got that type of camera, then you can do that. But even if it's just off your phone, just make sure to go back, review the footage, and make sure it sounds okay. And this is another good thing. What is the subject doing with their hands? I've seen a lot of church videos, perhaps where someone will be sat with a table in front of them. They'll have maybe their phone or their iPad balanced on the table, recording them speaking. And they'll have maybe their hands in front of them, maybe on the table, and they'll be tapping the fingers on the table. They'll maybe have bits of paper with their notes on, and they'll be shuffling the bits of paper on the table. And very often with the smartphones and the tablets, the cameras can pick up a lot of sound, and especially if they're on the table that they're sat on. And when you listen back to it, you've got all these little sounds and this interference. So again, bear that in mind when you're recording. What's the person doing with their hands that's maybe going to create sound that you don't want? So we're just going to check out some equipment, and these are microphones that you could look to purchase. If you do a lot of recording in your church of people speaking, then one of the first things, if you want to improve the sound, I would recommend you get a microphone like one of these. These are called lapel microphones, and they're very simple. As you can see, they just plug straight into your phone or your camera, and there's a little wire that trails and it just clips straight onto the person. And it's amazing the difference that it can make. It can just, because it's obviously a small microphone, and if you put it near to the person's mouth, it picks up them speaking very clearly. And here's just a couple of recommendations. I mean, there's loads of these that you can buy, but this is one I'd recommend if you've got a bit more money. This is a Rode lapel mic that's £50, but it's one that does a really good job, and it's probably slightly going to give you a slightly better result than something cheaper like this, which is £12.50 on Amazon. But again, if you're just starting out, get something like this, £12.50, and this will probably do a decent job as well. But there are lots of other types of microphones that you can get. So this on the left, you can see this is you might have heard of the make Rode. Rode are a very popular and well-known make of microphones, and they produce a lot of microphones. And these are basically wireless microphones. So and I've had some clergy contact me and ask me about this, because very often they'll be doing a video or a live stream from quite a distance away, especially now we're back in churches. They'll maybe have the camera in the main part of the church, and the person leading the service will be behind an altar, which is obviously quite a distance from the camera. and they'll be saying that their phone or their camera is just really struggling to pick up their voice. Now, if you were going to do that with one of these, you'd obviously need one with a very long cable, which would not be ideal. But so perhaps a really good solution would be to get wireless microphones, and these come really highly recommended. I mean, you can see because they're wireless, they do come quite a bit more expensive, so £150. You could probably get them cheaper than this, but these Rode ones have got good reviews. And what you'd basically have is you'd have one of these attached to your phone or your camera, and then the other one will clip onto the person speaking, and you'd be able to then attach one of these lapel microphones to this little wireless system. And it basically means, I think you can do it up to like 50 meters or something. You can go as far as you want with these, and it just avoids having any wires or anything. Equally, you can also get, if you're doing filming where you've got the subject stood quite close to the camera, but you don't want something that's going to trail a wire. So you don't want something like this where you've got a wire going from the phone to the subject. You could get something called a shotgun microphone, which is a bit like this, £46. I mean, again, with shotgun microphones, it's like with any microphone, the more money you spend, the better quality you're going to get. You could spend hundreds of pounds on a shotgun microphone, and you'll obviously get better quality, but you could just spend tens of pounds on one as well. But this is one that attaches to a phone, and basically it's called a shotgun microphone because the sound that it captures is the sound that if you fire a shotgun, you get that sort of V, don't you? That spray, and you imagine it basically with one of these microphones, it basically captures what's in front of the microphone. And again, I wouldn't really recommend one of these if the subject is far away from the camera, but if they're within a few meters, then you'd probably get decent sound from one of those mics as well. So there's just some suggestions of some equipment that you could purchase that will help you improve the quality of your sound. Now, I realize I've been talking for quite a few minutes, so I just wanted to basically pause for just 4 or 5 minutes. And if anyone's got any questions, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. Has anyone got any quick questions or comments to come back on about anything that I've said so far?
Hi, Richard. I haven't got
Hello.
a camera on my laptop, so you can't see me. It's Helen. I'm just wondering
Hi.
how you add subtitles onto videos.
Really good question. So there's a couple of ways I've done this. One way is if you have some video editing software. So I have a piece of software. So when I've taken my footage, I'll always edit it and it's the software I use is called Adobe Premiere Pro, and it's I'd say if you want to do advanced video editing, Adobe Premiere Pro is like the best software to get. If you're wanting something more basic, then I'd probably suggest something else. But basically on software like that, it enables you to manually type subtitles onto the video. I mean, that can be quite time consuming because, as you can imagine, it means you're having to type out everything that the person says and making sure it appears at the right moment on the video. If you want something that is quicker, and this is usually what I do, if any of you have ever uploaded videos to YouTube before, what YouTube offers is an automated subtitle system. So once you upload a video to YouTube, it automatically scans the video and it generates subtitles automatically. Now, especially if you've got a broad accent, you can imagine that or if you use slang, then the subtitles can not always be correct. It won't get every word exactly right, will the automated system. But what you can do on YouTube is you can go into the settings of the video and you can edit the subtitles. So you can upload it to YouTube, get it to generate the subtitles automatically, and it only takes about 5 minutes for it to do it. And then once you've done that, you can go into edit the video in YouTube, and you can change any of the words that are maybe not right. I mean, I found YouTube have improved this recently, and the subtitles that automatically are generated are getting better. So I tend to find it's only the odd word that you have to change, but that is a lot quicker way of doing subtitles. And then what you could do then is if you want to share the video to another platform, not YouTube, you can actually download the subtitles from YouTube. So you can download them as a file. And if you upload in the video then to something like Facebook, you can upload the video with the subtitles, if that makes sense.
Yes, okay, thank you.
But yeah, has anyone else got any other questions maybe about lighting or sound? Or if not, that's absolutely fine. Yeah. Well, as I say, there will be opportunity at the end as well for you. So if you have any questions, feel free to write them down, and we'll have maybe 10 minutes at the end when any of you can make any comments. And it doesn't have to be a question. If you've got something you want to share, maybe you've used a certain camera or a certain piece of software and you just think it'll be useful for other people to know, then please feel free to share. Great. Okay. So we're going to jump back into the PowerPoint and we're going to look at stability next, and then framing and background, and then we're going to look at A-roll and B-roll, and then we'll come to an end. Okay. So stability is the next thing. This is probably a bit more straightforward, but obviously we want to keep the video as still and smooth as possible, which is obviously really obvious. I mean, especially when you're filming someone who's just sat and talking, and it's just a still shot. I mean, I've done it before where I've tried to hold a camera and while someone's talking, and I mean, obviously, the more you practice doing that, the more steady your hands get, but you're still going to have that shaking when you're holding the camera, which is obviously a natural thing. And you want to try and avoid that because, again, that can be quite distracting when the camera's shaking. You want it to be still and as smooth as possible. So holding your phone and camera can create shaking, and that's where tripods, and this might be a new thing for some of you, but gimbals come in. So most of you probably know what a tripod is, but gimbals is another piece of equipment that helps you stabilize your video as well. And I'll share with you what one of those is. But if you're on a really low budget, or maybe you've not used a tripod before and you just want to give it a go, you can make tripods. You can make homemade tripods. And so one thing that I've seen people use is a coffee cup. So if you go to Costa or Starbucks and you get one of the cardboard coffee cups, and if you just get one of those, cut a slit in the top so you can put your phone into it, and then just sit that onto a desk or a table, and that can be a nice little homemade tripod that can work just as well as something that you'd buy from a store or on the internet. Or you can use something like a plant pot, or I know some of you might, if you've got an iPad, or a tablet, they might come with a little stand that you can obviously stand it up on. All that's fine. But again, another thing is remember to practice and take some footage to test how stable it is. And yeah, I mean, what I tend to do, and this goes back to when you're doing sound and lighting as well, is before I actually film the main piece of footage, I'll always film maybe about 20 seconds. So if it's someone talking, I'll just say to them, can you just explain what you had for breakfast? And just get them just to quickly sit and talk, explain what they've had for breakfast, and then you can look back at that little piece of footage. You can make sure it sounds okay, and you can make sure that it's all stable and it looks good, and that it's framed as you want it as well. But yeah, I mean, obviously, and I know it's like one of you said when we were doing the Jamboard task that the video I showed you didn't have any movement, and I think having movement in your videos is great. But obviously, you still want that to be smooth. You don't want a shaking camera which is moving about. And a lot of that, again, is practice. It's practice holding the camera, moving with the camera. And you don't particularly need to spend loads of money to get effective shots with movement. It's just about practicing. And I mean, a quick tip, if you are moving with the camera and you want to keep it stable, is to lock your elbows down to the side of your body and hold the camera. And so if that just creates a more solid base, if you've got your elbows locked into your body. But yeah, I mean, let's look at some equipment that you could buy. So here's some tripods that I use basically. And obviously this is if you're filming someone stood talking or sat talking and you just want something that's going to be really still and reliable. If you've got like a smartphone that you use, then I bought this, which was £23 from Amazon, and I've used this so much. I mean, it's not the best quality. It's only £23, but it's really small. It's really lightweight. I think it can. I don't know how high it can go up to, but it can go up to maybe about 3 or 4 foot. So and you can obviously stand it on things if you want to make it higher. But that's just a great piece of kit just for if you're using a phone. But if you've got a proper like a DSLR camera and you're wanting something a bit more professional, more solid, then this is what we use at work. This is a newer one, which is £96, which we found really good. It's a really good solid tripod that you could purchase. But just to show you as well, actually, just on my screen, if you're thinking what a gimbal is, then I've got one here, which is one that I bought, and it's basically something like it. Hopefully you can see this okay, but it looks like this, and you can see that it's got a handle that you hold, so you hold it, and then the phone actually attaches into this little holster here, and this is quite a cool little gimbal. It actually connects to your phone via Bluetooth, and you hold the phone with the handle like this, and you can control the phone using some dials on the gimbal. And if you're moving around with the phone and maybe you're following someone, then it steadies your picture really well. And you only have to use one hand as well. And so that's, if you don't know what a gimbal is, that's basically what a gimbal is. But you can buy them for DSLR cameras as well. Just put that down there. So that's what a gimbal is, if you're wondering what one of those was. Brilliant. So that's stability. Next, let's look next at framing and background. So this is obviously all about what the actual video looks like. Particularly if you're recording someone, how are they framed? And there's lots of good tips to bear in mind when you're doing this. So where the person looks. So this is a good question to ask before you do a video. Are you going to have the person looking directly at the camera? Or you might have seen, especially if you watch the news, and you've got people who have been interviewed. Sometimes you'll have people looking off camera, so not directly at the camera. But this very much depends on the context. So if you want the person to speak directly to camera, then that means that they're going to speak directly to the audience. So I'd say this is probably a good thing to do if you're preaching, for example, and you're speaking directly at people, or maybe you're giving like an instruction, like doing some sort of instructional video, and you're speaking directly to the person who's watching. But if the video is more of a conversational video, and it's maybe not as direct to the audience, then I would suggest maybe having the person look slightly off camera, it means that the person speaking is not speaking directly at the person who's watching. It's almost as if the person watching then is someone sat in the room with them, and they're almost looking in on a conversation. So you can see how it creates a different effect. So again, another thing is, do you have the subject central in the frame, or do you have them like this fellow at the bottom who's off to one side? And again, there's no right or wrong answer with this. And I think it can often depend on the person doing the film. Some people prefer having the person in the center, whereas other people prefer having them slightly offset to the side. But this is a common term when you make videos, the rule of thirds. This basically means you can see at the bottom here in this image that you've got the frame, and you can see that there's this grid that divides the frame into thirds, basically. And the idea behind the rule of thirds is that if you've got someone talking on camera, that rather than them having them central, you have them off to one side, off to 1/3 of the frame, and their eyes are at this point where the lines meet here, at the top left or at the top right, and that's supposed to create a good looking video, basically. So when you're taking a video of someone, you can have them central, but can you have them slightly offset as well? And I'd probably suggest if you've got the person speaking direct to camera, I'd normally have them central. But if you're having them speaking off camera, then maybe having them slightly to one side and looking to the side of the camera probably is a good thing. They call this, you can see this chap here in the image, he's looking slightly off camera, and he's looking into this is called dead space. I think it's called dead space, and it's basically looking into the space, if that makes sense. So you wouldn't have them looking at the other side, you'd have them looking towards where the space is in the frame. Again, another thing, vertical space above the head. So very often we can have a person's face in the very center of the frame, with lots of space above the person's head. And this is not the best way to go. This is a good example in this image. You can see that the person's head is near the top of the frame, and that creates a nicer looking shot rather than having their head further down. Have the face near the top of the frame with maybe a couple of inches above the person's head, and this allows space for things to be captured below. So you can see this person, you've got his hands in the frame, and it gives you that opportunity to have the person's hands when they're talking. And when we're thinking about background, so that's a bit about framing the subject. When we're thinking about background, obviously you don't want it to be too bright or too distracting for the viewer. Neutral colors are always good and they look nice. but try and make sure the colours contrast with the subject. So again, this is a good example here. Again, this picture, you can see that the person's wearing like a dark sort of navy blue, black jumper, and it contrasts very well to his background. And there's obviously lots of neutral colours in the background as well. But again, you can experiment with your background. And as I said before, when I was talking about lighting, you can add light to the background. Think about adding different colours, which can look very effective. And also using lines in the background can work really well too. So you'll see some shots that are taken where you'll have maybe a line leading into the subject. So if you have lines that where the line, it might be a wall or something, which and if you follow the line of the wall, it leads to the person talking, and that's a great way of helping the viewer to focus on the subject, if that makes sense. But here's just here's a good example at the top left. You've got a video. This was taken by one of our churches in Leeds, and you can see that rather than the person being offset, this is a central shot where you've got this little lad who's in the center of the frame. I mean, you can see that there is a bit of headspace, but there's not too much headspace, and it's just a nice looking shot. And you can see that the background, I mean, it's not overly distracting. You know, it's mostly sort of neutral colors, and his jumper and his face contrasts well with the background. Whereas this other one, for example, you can see that this is a video taken by someone who's perhaps using an iPad or a phone on a table, and you can see that there's a lot of headspace, which just doesn't look very good, and he's almost looking over the camera, so it looks almost a little intimidating in a way. Whereas with this one in the top left of the boy, you can see that the camera is eye level with the boy, so it's on the same level, which is what you want if you're filming someone who's talking. And this is another really nice example that I saw. This is the National Church of England service that you might have watched, which they showed. I think this was last week. John Sentamu during his last service, and this is his wife, of course, giving a Bible reading. And I just thought the way they'd framed her and the background looked really nice. I mean, you can see here she's central. She's looking direct at the camera because she's doing a Bible reading. She's speaking direct to the audience, but you can see that the headspace is really nice. There's just a little bit of space above her head. And the background, you can see how they've used lighting in the background. They've got some candles, and the background is blurred as well, which is and she's in focus, which looks really nice. I just think that's and you can see again she's wearing white, and that contrasts really well with the dark background as well. So there's just some thoughts about framing and background for you. Okay, so lastly, we're just going to look at A-roll and B-roll. So if you're unsure what A-roll is, what I mean by A-roll is the main piece of footage. So if you're recording someone who's talking, giving a talk, then it's the main shot of them speaking, basically. Whereas B-roll, they can be referred to cutaways as well. This is supplemental or alternative footage intercut with the main shot. So very often, if you've got someone stood talking, you'll have the main shot of them talking, showing their face. But then as they're talking, you'll have other shots that that go alongside the main piece of footage. And again, if you watch the news, they do this all the time. They'll have someone talking, and then they'll cut to something that's related to what they're talking about. And this is basically a way of keeping people's attention. Having multiple shots can make your video more engaging. I'm sure you've experienced this, but if you've just got a shot of someone stood talking for about 10 minutes, then it can be you do have to concentrate quite hard just to watch that same shot for that length of time. And I realise when we're doing our church services, it's difficult to get away from that. But when you're doing a plan for video, think about the B-roll that you can also take, and you can intercut that with your main shot, and it makes it more interesting. It mixes up your video. So plan carefully what your B-roll footage would include, and of course make it relevant. You don't want B-roll footage that's completely nothing to do with the video, because that'll be a bit pointless. It wants to be something that is to do with the video. And again, if you really want to get into it, can you use more than one camera? So something I've very often done is I'll have the main camera recording the person talking, and then I'll have a second camera set up at a different angle, taking the footage at the same time. So that means when you're doing your post edit, you've got two video angles that you can switch between, and it means that you've just got some B-roll footage that you can use throughout your video. Just to demonstrate what B-roll footage is, I'm just going to show you a video that I recorded of Bishop Nick, who's the Bishop of Leeds, if you don't know. And this is a Christmas message that I recorded with him in December. So apologies that this is about Christmas. I know it's a bit early for Christmas, but I have the main footage of him talking, but you'll see in this video that I also use B-roll to make the video more interesting. So I'm just going to unshare, and then I'm going to share again with the audio so you can hear the video as well. Here we go. Hopefully you can hear this okay.
I recently went in London to see an exhibition at the Royal Academy, and was surprised on the way in the enormous courtyard to see this black thing on the floor. And it was only when I got close up I discovered it wasn't a bin bag with something in it. It was a sculpture of a 6-day-old baby by Anthony Gormley. And within the grandeur of all of those buildings and the amount of space, this tiny little metal baby on the floor looked incredibly vulnerable, and it was very affecting for a lot of people who were walking past and realizing what it was. And I think at Christmas, that's a very powerful image for me, because we live in a world of sometimes great grandeur and enormous uncertainty, in which we often feel very, very vulnerable, a bit like that baby. And at Christmas, we remember that God came among us, opted to come among us as one of us, not in great power and glory, but in the vulnerability of that baby of Bethlehem, with all.
Oh, sorry, let me resume that for you.
That the world could throw at him, and he made himself subject to that. That's what we're celebrating.
Just a little demonstration of, I'm sure you could obviously use B-roll footage much more effectively than what I did there, but you can see that I changed up the video just with some really easy things. I had the shot, the main shot, with, you could see most of the bishop's upper body, and then all I did is I zoomed in. I had some shots where I zoomed into him, just using the same footage, but zooming it in basically, and I kept going in and out. And also I did some footage of his hands, and I did that actually after he'd spoken, because obviously in a lot of the footage you couldn't see his hands. So I just basically I got him after he'd spoken, and I said, I'm just going to record you, so if you just move your hands about. And that was just another little piece of B-roll. And then I obviously got the over the shoulder. I just basically recorded him just over his shoulder, and again you couldn't see his mouth, so I recorded that afterwards, and it didn't really matter what he was saying and that it was in sync, because obviously you couldn't see his mouth moving. And yeah, so there's just some ways that you can create B-roll just to make your videos more interesting. Okay, so we're coming towards the end now, and I've just got one last little activity for you to do. Now, I don't know if these were about when some of you did your driving test, but I know when I did my driving test, you obviously had your theory that you had to pass, and there was the questions you had to answer, but then you had to do a driver's awareness test, and that's basically when you watched some footage of someone driving, and you had to click when there was a hazard basically coming up. And what I'd like you to do is something similar, but do a video awareness test. What I'm going to do is basically show you a really nice video that someone from our diocese has produced, the church in our diocese, St. Matthew's in Burley, which is in Leeds. And they did a little video about their response to COVID-19 and how they're helping their community. And they really effectively use all of the things that I've talked about tonight. And I've just basically, as this video is played, if you want to, if you've got maybe a bit of pen and paper with you, or if you haven't, that doesn't matter, but it maybe note down or clock the different things that they are using in this video. So whether that's sound, lighting, B-roll, stabilization, all that type of thing. So I'm just going to unshare my screen, and then I'm going to share it again, and I'm going to play you this video on YouTube. So hopefully it'll play okay for you. Here it is. Okay.
As the COVID-19 situation started to unravel, there were many people in the church who were aware of the need within our community. And so we decided that to shine the light of Christ in this environment, we needed to respond, and we needed to offer presence and support in any way that we could. One of the ways that we're supporting the Burley community is by setting up a helpline that is open 7 days a week for people to call to ask for support in any way that looks.
And I'm part of the phone team, which involves manning the phone 3 hours a day, 2 days a week. People sometimes ask for prayer, people just want to chat, and sometimes people have a request for like a food shop.
I'm helping to do food deliveries for people in the local community who can't get out and get their own food. I've been to Aldi to buy the food, and now I'm just going off to do the delivery.
We are working closely with the council to identify need within the area and offering free food to those who are in need of that.
This week and last week we've been delivering food parcels around the church area. It's been surprising the amount of people that are by themselves, especially now during lockdown. For example, there was one man who was by himself but was super grateful for everything and so nice.
It's been really lovely at a distance to be able to chat to some of the elderly people, and it was a great opportunity to personally pray for each door that I delivered to.
I'm feeling real hope in the way the different parts of the community have come together. So one of the local residential places contacted us and said that they were really excited and thought that it was a great idea.
And people's response have been so touching, and people have been so grateful for the basic of food that's being provided to them.
And so there's these moments of joy and there's these moments of hope that people aren't forgotten and people aren't left behind in the midst of this crisis.
There we go. Lovely little video, I'm sure you'll agree. So just as we come to a close, I'm just going to quickly go back onto my PowerPoint. I just wanted to basically tell you before we will have, say, another opportunity for you to pass any comments or ask some questions. But just before we do that, I'd just like to point you towards this Facebook page this Facebook group, sorry, that we've set up. And I know some of you have joined it already, and thank you for that. But it's just basically a little Facebook group that our diocese has set up, and it's for anyone who's interested in digital stuff. We call them ourselves Leeds CV Comms Champions. But if you're not in the Leeds diocese, you're more than welcome to join it as well. That's not a problem. And it's a little space where you can maybe ask questions, share some resources, and I try and share articles and bits of advice as well from time to time. And if you just type in Facebook, if you're on Facebook, Leeds CV Comms Champions, then it should appear, and you can feel free to ask to join it, and I'll accept you. But that's just a little something that you can join. And as I said, tomorrow I will send you all an email again, one with an evaluation form. So if you could be kind enough to fill out that form and just about this training session and how you feel it's gone, and pass on any comments, that'd be great. But I'll also send you through those planning documents that I showed you right at the start as well, so you've got those if you wish to use them. So yeah, just lastly, just want to thank you all for coming. It's been brilliant. Thank you so much for your attendance. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it, found it useful. And I'm just going to basically, if you need to go, that's absolutely fine. But also, if you want to ask a question about anything video related, then please feel free to do so now. I'll just unshare the screen. So yeah, if you feel free, if you want, you can unmute yourself. You can ask something, or if not, that's totally fine as well. I mean, I know sometimes that you do think of questions after you've been to something, so you can always email me if you've got a question that you think of after this session. But I mean, I realize not really gone into any editing software, and we've not really talked about perhaps publishing the videos, which if I would have had time, I would have gone into that. I suppose we probably needed a whole day to explore those as well. I realize there are other aspects to video that I've not gone into. I've just really gone into shooting a good video and planning it. But I realize there's obviously the editing that comes after, and also sharing it on social media or on a website. That's another aspect. But Mark, sorry, is that a hand you're raising?
Yes, it is. Thank you. I just wanted to say I'm really grateful for what you've done tonight, because tomorrow I will be doing some interviews, recorded interviews with my smartphone, all being well. And I will also be having some recording done of me delivering a sermon for Christians Together, a local Christians Together service that's coming up. And some of the tips and pointers and advice that you've given tonight will, I'm sure, pay dividends, and I'm really grateful for that. So thank you. Really appreciate it.
Good. It's my pleasure. Thanks for that, Mark. That's great, and good luck tomorrow with that. I found with anything, it's practice as well. Like the more videos you do, you just sort of you do naturally find ways of making things better, and yeah, just sort of, and they're just things that I've sort of picked up from other people as I've gone on, and as I've but the more videos you do, the more you learn, isn't it? It's like with anything. So I just encourage you just to practice, basically. So try and give yourself different opportunities to produce videos for different things, or just practice in your own time. It's the best way of getting better. But if anyone obviously has any other questions about like the cameras, for example, some of the equipment, then happy to help with that. But because I know it can be can feel like a bit of a minefield when you're looking at equipment. Rod, sorry, you've got your hand.
Richard, once again, thank you for everything. It's been very helpful and very good examples. Getting onto editing would presumably be a bit of a minefield because it would be almost different whatever anybody else is using. But I have a specific question with respect to somebody that you are doing a video of, and they are reading from a prepared script. Now, I've done a very short one with my wife, and it was sufficiently short that I could just hold up a piece of paper beside the camera.
Yeah.
But something that is rather longer, have you any suggestions about how anything like a homemade autocue would be set up?
Yeah, I mean, no, thanks, Rod. It's a really great question. I mean, yeah, I've sort of battled with this a little bit because I've done some videos for my church, and I like to have quite extensive notes. I mean, I know some people that might just have bullet points, and they can, if it's a video that's maybe just 5 minutes or less, then they can probably handle with that. But I realize if you're doing a sermon or something, you do need to read off notes. And like you say, the one way is just to have someone help you and hold up notes next to the camera. I mean, I have done that. So I've done some recording with my dad, and I just literally did that. I printed off his notes and I held them underneath the camera. And what he tried to do was he was reading them, but then he did try and lift his eyes up to the camera every now and then, just so he was getting that direct eye contact. So, like you say, that's one way you can do it, Rod. I mean, you can buy auto cues. So, I mean, I've not used one personally, but I have got friends who have used them, and that's probably the best way if you're wanting to read off of notes. Yes, Julie. Sorry.
When I'm preaching, I do use a laptop, which is more helpful, but I simply put the notes on screen. So just because I can't see the people doesn't mean they can't see me in exactly the same way, but I just make the text large, and it gives you more eye contact because your eyes are much nearer to the camera than if you were using an auto cue, perhaps.
Yes. That's a really good suggestion. Like, say if Julie, you can record off a laptop with a camera, just have it open up as the words on a document. That's a great way of doing it. But like I say, you can buy auto cues. I know that like you can buy them. So like if you're filming off of a smartphone, you can have them so they go with your smartphone. And I don't think they're overly expensive either. So it's just probably something, Rod, if you're thinking of auto cues, maybe just doing a bit of research. Other ways of doing it, I mean, I have seen people just holding notes, so they'll just have them in the hand, and they need to glance at them, but it's just they'll maybe just have bullet points or whatever, and they're just there's nothing wrong with like looking down and glancing, then looking back up. And
yes, well, Julie's suggestion of she does it on her laptop. I'm doing this on a Mac. And I could have the text on the Mac exactly the same as you have on the iPad, Julie. Thank you.
I'd give that a go. That sounds like the best way, definitely. Great. Is it anyone anything else? Anyone wants to ask?
Richard, we struggle with sound quite a bit.
Yes.
For our Sunday services, we've been using Zoom, really because of the fellowship that you get with Zoom. long term, I don't think it will work well for us.
Yeah.
It's not really good. I don't think it's designed for audio and video. So if we try to do both, it's not wonderful.
No.
Quality's not good.
I found that with Zoom, that I think probably no matter what you do, it's not going to be quite as good as recording off of a phone or a camera, unfortunately. I mean, there's things you can do. Like this is the first time I've used it. I mean, I can't hear myself. I'm hoping I'm quite clear by using this microphone here. And basically, I've got a little bit of maybe I can grab it, but it's basically like a little box that looks like that. This is called an audio interface. I mean, you sort of have to. I mean, for this, it is over £100, but it's really easy to use. It connects straight like USB into your laptop, and then it's got a mic cable, an XLR that goes into the box, into the microphone, and so obviously you could use something like this on Zoom that would probably boost your sound. But obviously you need to invest in a bit of gear to do that. But once you've got it, it's not sort of overly complicated to get it going. And I mean, I know some people use the headphones, don't they, when they're on Zoom, and I know they have like the little mic, like the microphones, and sometimes that can improve the sound on Zoom. And I know it can be dependent on your device as well, can't it? I know that some laptops or like iPads, the sound, they just pick up sound better. So if you're using an older computer, maybe if you've got like an iPad, that might, I don't know if the sound would be any better on that, but yeah.
We've tried embedding video into PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So that to try and make it seamless, but there's a little tick box, isn't there, that you've got to tick if you're using video.
Yeah.
If you get to untick it, then you get feedback throughout the rest of your PowerPoint when you're not actually playing music. It's all very fussy.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. I mean, it's not perfect, is it? I mean, yeah, I mean, Zoom is great because it's all live and you can sort of chat, can't you? And I mean, my church uses Zoom. I mean, for our main services, we're very blessed. We have someone who does video editing and stuff, and so we do use Facebook. So we like pre-record it, chop it together, and it's like, and then we have Zoom afterwards where people get together and chat and discuss, and so we try and mix it. But yeah, I realize it's not. I mean, there are videos out there that people have done with like how to improve the sound quality on Zoom and stuff. So maybe it's just sort of worth having a bit of a look and seeing what's out there. But yeah. But
it's all been really helpful, Richard. So thank you.
No, not a problem. No, I'm glad it has been, and it's been lovely seeing you all. And I think we'll it's 9:15 nearly, so nearly bedtime. Well,
thanks.
Thank you. It's nice to see you all. And yeah, take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.